2024 meeting. I'm Julia Hatton. I'm the DACAG secretary, and I'm filling in for Roman today as our facilitator. As many of you likely already know, today is International Women's Day, which is, of course, a global day of celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. As a proud woman myself, I'm proud to be here to support disadvantaged communities in the state of California, and want to wish a happy Women's Day to all the women here in this meeting and all the women in your lives. And before we do a roll call, I just want to do a quick reminder. Senate Bill 544 requires members of the DACAG who are participating remotely to remain visible on camera. If you have challenges with internet connectivity during this meeting that are preventing you from being visible to the other members and to the public, please just publicly announce the reason you are off camera as soon as possible. And we will now proceed to roll call, and I will read the names one by one in alphabetical order. So we've got Adrian.
Here.
I think absent. Andres.
Present.
Curtis. Absent. Elena may be joining later. Fred. Absent. Julia is present. Roger.
Present.
Roman is absent. Sahara, I believe, is absent. And Stephanie is present. Okay, so we've got 5. Actually, I see 4 here today. Did I miss someone?
I believe Adrian is here.
Oh, Adrian?
Yes, Adrian is here.
Okay. Great. All right, we've got 5 folks. We need 1 more for a quorum, so we'll see if anybody else joins us. Otherwise, we'll skip the voting items. Okay, and I think now we move into item 2 for general public comment. These are for any comment on any items that are either on or off this agenda related to the DACAG's work, and Ling will provide us with meeting reminders and instructions.
Thank you, Julia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ling Mu, support staff for the DACAG and equity specialist at the California Public Utilities Commission. Supporting us today are my colleagues, Dorothy Mariami, Francisco Hernandez, as well as legal support from the CPUC and CEC, Vanessa Baldwin and Renee Webster Hawkins. A few reminders. This meeting is being recorded and held both remotely and in person. Julia, as the facilitator, will conduct roll call votes for items the DACA is voting on to ensure a clear record. We have enabled WebEx closed captioning feature to make this meeting more accessible. To use the closed captioning, press Ctrl+Shift+A or click on the bottom left CC icon. Once captions are turned on, attendees can click the 3 dots more option at the bottom right of the caption box to view captions and highlights. The WebEx instructions for public comment. This public comment is an opportunity for attendees to give comments regarding any matters related to the DACAG or today's agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and will alert you when your time is up. Our comments will become part of the public records. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so that we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute. The chat feature is not available to attendees. It is solely for panelists to ask for technical, procedural, or legal support. At this time, are there any public comments on any of the items that are on or off the agenda? Okay, we see one person here in person would like to make a comment. Please state and spell your name, your affiliation, and you may give your comment.
Yes, my name is Armin Garcia, A-R, M as in Mary, I, N as in Nancy, last name Garcia. I am the Chief Technology Officer for CN Incorporated, and we are a community solar developer based here in San Francisco. And we focus a lot of our efforts in disadvantaged communities, specifically within here in the Central Valley. And first of all, I want to note that my comment is also submitted in the form of a letter that was submitted yesterday online. My hope is that everyone has access to it. So I'm going to keep this extremely brief. And what I want to illustrate are basically the criteria used to determine matching funds on all EPIC grants. And the criteria is basically is a cash or in-kind contribution. And what we are asking for is that this criteria be reconsidered in light of the fact that there's significant funds available at the federal level, specifically, ITC funds. And so what we're observing is that up to 70% of a project is paid, yet these funds are not considered to be cash or in kind. And we see that as an issue specifically for a lot of these smaller communities in the Central Valley. We're currently working with the city of Firebaugh. We attempted to apply to one of these grants previously, but we were readily denied. We didn't even go through the application process based on the fact that we spoke to the actual program administrator beforehand, and they let us know that it's not possible. So I want to be very clear that when we're asking for cash in hand, that prioritizes venture capital or any sort of private funds. And we just don't think that's necessarily right. Again, that's just a quick summary of a letter that I submitted online. I encourage everyone to please take a look at it. My contact information is in that letter. And for any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any raised hand through WebEx or calling. Seeing no comments here. Back to you, Julia. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And we now have Curtis and Elena with us from the DACAG, and we now have quorum. So for item 3, we're going to go to opening comments by the CEC and CPUC commissioners and advisors. So I'd love to acknowledge the commissioners who are joining us here today. We welcome you to say hi, to give any brief remarks that you would like to provide. And we'll start with the CEC. I believe we have Vice Chair Gunda here today, Commissioner Monahan, and Valeria from Commissioner Gallardo's office.
Thank you, Member Hatton. Really glad to be here. Secretary Hatton, want to join you in celebrating the International Women's Day today. Lucky to have my daughter born today, so we're celebrating her birthday as well. So I'm here to just share a few updates from the CEC end, which you'll be hearing today. One is on the NEBS conversation, specifically regarding SB 100, which is item number 5 today that you'll be discussing. But also wanted to provide some high-level update for those of you who haven't tracked yet. We just want to thank the petitioners, just led by Member Roger Lynn on a petition submitted to the Energy Commission to open rulemaking on NEBS specifically. We want to really thank the opportunity for having that conversation with the petitioners. Our office was able to meet with a number of members, and the staff have done a tremendous job working with the petitioners to provide a creative path moving forward. So the staff have provided their recommendation. They've already docketed that on kind of procedural issues, might not be able to open the rulemaking, but we are going to, the staff are recommending to the commission to open OIP, which is an informational proceeding specifically focused on non-energy benefits, which the commission will be voting on next week. So just wanted to really thank the staff, but also the petitioners, specifically Member Roger Lynn, for really kind of having the discussion on how best to ensure that we move forward to meet the substance and the spirit of the petition. So wanted to just thank everybody on that, and also we really thank you for your attention on the SB 100 process and the NIPS discussion there. Look forward to further engaging with you. Want to specifically thank Mona Badi, Chad, who's from our Chief Counsel's Office, and Alicia Gutierrez, who is on the call today from the Energy Assessments Division, who really worked on the petition. So I want to thank them. And with that, I'll try to be here as long as I can today. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Curtis Silvers. The WebEx is now working with my camera, so we're going to try to have some IT people come in, but I'm off screen, but listening intently.
Noted. Thank you for letting us know, Curtis.
So I'll just chime in after the vice chair. So I can't remember in our last meeting whether I thanked the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group for your role in helping advise our Clean Transportation Program investment plan. And we did approve a $1.9 billion plan with input from the Disadvantaged Communities Advisory Group. And I know individual members I've talked with, the ones that have really been deeply involved in the transportation side, but it has been really important to the development of the plan to have your input. So I just want to thank you for the extra time it took to write the letter, to participate in the process, and just we are, as I mentioned, I guess I did mention last time, we're reconstituting the advisory committee, and so we haven't yet gone through the applications, just closed, haven't yet gone through it, but I'm excited for some of the folks that I know have applied. We have somebody representing San Diego, low-income housing, also connected to the faith community, several members of the faith community that are applying, which we've never had in the past. So I'm excited for having more diversity, and we're gonna make sure that we are, well, I shouldn't say make sure because it's like a constant work in progress, but just we want to have a advisory committee that is really representative of California. And so if we don't get that in this first round, we're going to open it up to make sure that we get it. And I'll be sharing with you when we finally have the full advisory committee, the folks that we have engaged, and to get your input on whether we're missing something important in that space. I also wanted to alert you all to our upcoming charger reliability regulations. So I think anybody who owns an EV has faced some challenging times in finding a charger that works and really trying to have it successfully charge your vehicle the first time you plug in. So we'll also be engaging you in that once we have the next round. I think you'll be very interested to hear about it. And I think it has a direct intersection with equity, since a lot of families just don't have single family homes where they can afford to put in a charger, or they have the ability to put in a charger. So there is definitely an important intersection there. And then lastly, on the non-energy benefits conversation, I too am really curious for this conversation, like the vice chair. And I will say, we're in the midst of a process in Fuels and Transportation Division of defining what's a benefit when it comes to our investments. And so I think there's a direct link there too, because we are looking at non-energy benefits as part of that assessment. And with that, I will stop. I'm not sure if I missed who's representing.
It might be
Gallardo's
Valeria.
office.
Is Valeria here from Commissioner Gallardo's office?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Hi, yes, I'm Valeria. I'm here on behalf of Commissioner Gallardo. She sends her regards and her best to the DCAC members. She is currently at Imperial Valley, and she will try to join the meeting as soon as she can. In the meantime, she asked me to communicate to all of you that the nomination period is open for the 2024 Clean Energy Hall of Fame Awards. You can submit any and all of your nominations through the online form, which is available at the CEC website. Or another option is to email me your name for the nominee you want to propose, and I can help you complete that form on your behalf. That's what I have for now, and hopefully she can join us in. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Is there anyone else from the CEC before we move on to the CPUC? Okay, great. I see Commissioner Douglas. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to provide 2 updates to this group. The first thing I wanted to share is that with Commissioner Shiroma's retirement, I've been assigned to the Electric Program Investment Charge, or EPIC program, proceeding. And at our last meeting, the CPUC staff gave a presentation on the proposed decision on EPIC strategic goals, and the commission adopted that decision yesterday. The next steps in the proceeding include a series of workshops that will play out over the next couple of months aimed at informing the EPIC strategic goals with objectives and targets and performance measures. The workshops will be noticed on our website and through the proceeding service list, and it's, as I understand it, an area where the DACAG has put interest and obviously is interested and would like to continue to hear about the EPIC proceeding. So as this moves forward, this is one area that I'd be very interested, as would the CPC, in the views of the DACAG and the participation. And then secondly, I wanted to share that just related to what I know are some of the DACAG priorities, long-term gas planning and electrification. I'm the assigned commissioner to the commission's long-term natural gas rulemaking proceeding, and on February 22nd of this year, we issued a ruling proposing a scope and schedule for the next phase of work in the proceeding. And we also issued a joint agency staff gas transition white paper that was developed by staff from the CPUC, the Energy Commission, and the Air Resources Board. The ruling itself solicits comments on the what we can think of as the short, medium, and long-term actions that could be scoped into the proceeding. And so what was put out was essentially a draft scope, and we're looking for comments on that. There's going to be a pre-hearing conference coming up. I don't have in my notes the date, but I'll find it. And maybe I'll just put it in the chat. And there's also an opportunity to comment on that. And so I'll put those dates in the chat. The white paper itself is a more detailed look, again, from staff at all 3 agencies, at the issues that need to be considered and balanced in the gas transition, including the need to transition away from fossil gas to achieve the state's climate goals, equity and public health impacts of pollution from fossil gas, and also affordability, safety, reliability, and workforce risks and considerations related to the transition. So it's a very big set of topics. Very much look forward to your participation there as well. And that's all I've got for an update today. I'm looking forward to hearing the discussion. I'll be here as much as I can.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I believe we have Ed Moldavsky from Commissioner Hawk's office.
Yes, hi, thank you. This is Ed Moldavsky. I recently joined Commissioner Hawk's office, and she may be joining a little bit later this afternoon. I look forward to listening in on this meeting, and thank you for this opportunity.
Welcome. Thank you. Anyone else that I missed before we move on? Okay. All right. That takes us to item 4, which is our meeting minutes. We're going to look at the February 16th meeting minutes. And first, we want to see if there's any public comment.
Thank you. DACAG now welcomes public comments on item 4, February 16, 2024 meeting minutes. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. We'll show a timer on the screen and will alert you when your time is up. All comments will become part of the public record. Please let us know if you would like to make a comment so that we can call on you. For those on WebEx, use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. For those of you joining by phone, press *3 to raise your hand, then press *6 to unmute. Checking the hands. Anyone in the room would like to make comment? Seeing no comments, back to you, Julia.
Thank you. And are there any DACAG member comments or questions before we move forward? Okay, do we have anyone who is willing to move to approve item 4, the February 2024 meeting minutes?
And this is Roger, I'll second.
Okay, that sounded like Andres and Roger, is that right? Okay, wonderful. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. You can say aye if you're in favor, nay if you oppose, or you can indicate if you abstain. Adrian?
Abstain.
Andres?
Aye.
Curtis?
Aye.
Elena?
Abstain.
Fred is not here. Julia, aye. Roger?
Aye.
Roman is not here. Sahara is not here. Stephanie?
Aye.
Okay, that looks like 6 and the motion passes. Thanks, everyone. Okay. All right, we're going to turn now to item 5 on your agenda. This is the DACAG comment on petition for rulemaking to integrate non-energy benefits and social costs into resource planning and investment decision making. And Roger, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes, and thank you to staff for, again, moving this meeting to accommodate the discussion today before the vote on this item next Wednesday. And I just want to reiterate the thanks that Vice Chair Gunda said to staff. We have been working, as one of the petitioners, we have been working with staff quite closely on this one, and that has been a very collaborative and productive experience, and the staff recommendation is something that the petitioners at least wholeheartedly supports and want to see today if we could also get a letter out. If we could share the letter in a second after I do my rant, then, or now it's fine too. But this has been a long time coming, and just to give everyone a little bit of background on this issue, and this is also something that's interesting to me, where, you know, I feel like 4 years ago or so, we'd say the San Joaquin Valley pilots, and everyone would know what we were talking about. I realize that that's not so much the case these days, so I apologize for being a little bit repetitive. But our story begins in 2017, where the legislature and the Public Utilities Commission had identified 170 communities in the San Joaquin Valley that did not have access to natural gas and had terrible infrastructure and electricity service. So these communities were surviving off of burning wood or propane, and the commission came in, and the Public Utilities Commission came in and said, okay, we need to do something about this. Under the leadership of prior Commissioner Martha Guzman Aceves, we thankfully in 2018 were able to authorize community solar pilot projects in 10 of those communities. And that has been, for those residents, incredibly just a huge benefit to them. But at that time in 2017, myself and Wade Stano, who works at Marine Clean Energy right now, Wade was at the Green Lining Institute. I was at the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment. And we were talking to each other, and we are just like, how are we going to possibly replicate these 10 projects in 160 other communities? Like the ratepayer advocate pushback against those 10 projects was significant because they had a significant price tag, and that's understandable. But the reality is, though, that there is a lot of public health money. There's a lot of untouched outside funding that isn't traditionally thought of in the energy space that's out there, but we need to be able to determine what the public health benefits of these projects were. So at that point, Wade and I began exploring non-energy benefits further. There were 2 bills on it that Wade led, the most recent one being in 2021 with Senator Becker, SB 345. Both of those efforts at the legislature, though, were not successful due to significant utility opposition. But this public health problem that we have has still been there. Since then and before then, this group has engaged a lot on the issue. I feel like every single meeting we've had, we've mentioned non-energy benefits in some respect. It is in our charter. And again, when I first joined this group in 2018, again, that was an issue that was on our minds. So we have been pushing this issue since beginning in 2017, documenting pushing this effort since 2018. And a number of issues, to echo Commissioner Monahan, the number of areas that this implicates is significant. The letters that we put out have covered things from the IPER to the Public Utilities Commission's Energy Efficiency Program, to SB 100 as well. We've seen this problem arise more recently in the EPIC program, where, again, we did not have an adequate definition of benefits or a way to be like, okay, when we look at the costs and benefits of energy resources, how do we make sure that we consider the right ones or all of the costs and benefits that are important to environmental justice communities? So we've seen this problem in EPIC. In the energy efficiency world, there are hundreds of millions of untouched dollars that are earmarked for environmental justice or disadvantaged and low-income communities that we can't touch because those programs are cost ineffective. And so the cost effectiveness tests become a barrier to us accessing those untouched funds. If we don't touch them, they revert back to the utilities. And that's what we've been seeing year after year. So this is untouched money, again, not going to increase rates. And we need a mechanism to unlock it, to make programs that serve disadvantaged communities, which for the most part, as the petition identifies, are determined cost ineffective. But then the flip side to that, the cost-effective projects, like some combustion projects, are extremely cost-effective when we use our current cost-effectiveness tests. And the last thing I'll say before I stop and see if there are any questions on this are, I want to flag something that the Energy Commission's chair, Hochschild, raised a few meetings back. Now, California is not getting enough federal dollars, as we should be. The White House and the federal EPA, they're both looking for local benefits. They both want to direct federal money from the Inflation Reduction Act and other sources to programs that can show that there are local benefits. So there's this big disconnect in how our current cost-benefit analyses view those things, and even what the federal government, which California is meant to be in the lead, but we're lagging behind the federal government a little bit in this respect. So non-energy benefits unlocks a lot of state funds, but also will unlock also a lot of federal funds that the state desperately needs as well. So with that, I'll stop, see if there are any questions or concerns from the other advisory group members, and then would like to, after that, present a letter that I've drafted and hopefully get everyone's support.
Thank you, Roger. That was incredibly helpful. Do we need to move to public comment first folks before the DACAG asks questions and discusses?
Thank you, Julia. DACA now welcomes public comment on item 5. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. For individuals that are joining us on WebEx, go ahead and use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. If you are calling in, press *3 to indicate that you would like to make a comment. Checking hands here. No.
I should make a
Anyone
comment.
would like? Okay, we have one person join us in person would like to make comment. Please state and spell your name, your affiliation, then you may start your comment.
Yes, this is Armin Garcia, AR, M as in Mary, I, N as in Nancy, last name Garcia, Garcia. And I just, want to reiterate, a lot of Mr. Lin's point he has made right now. There's a lot of federal money that is simply being gated by these particular, requirements, if you will. The effect and impact is significant. As I've stated before, we're working with the city of Firebaugh in Central Valley. We've applied for grants, for EPIC grants, but we're immediately disqualified because we do not have the actual capital in hand. It favors private equity funds, it favors VC funds, or just cash on hand. Disadvantaged communities do not have access to capital. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, back to you, Julia.
Great, thank you. And we always appreciate the public comments, so thank you. Thank you for that. Let's move on to DACAG feedback and discussion on any questions for Roger, any questions related to this issue or to the letter specifically.
And if I could just run through the letter quickly, if we could pop it on the screen, I think the letter does a better job of explaining this than I am doing on a Friday afternoon. Sorry. Okay, so I'm used to WebEx, sorry. Okay, so the letter just talks about our group potentially supporting two main things in the petition. The first is that the existing, and this goes to the paragraph on the bottom paragraph on the first page, the existing framework, the cost and benefit analysis framework that we have doesn't look at local impacts. We look at greenhouse gases, but we don't look at local pollution that's happening. And the letter provides an example of biomethane associated with dairies. There are dairies that have repeated water quality violations, repeated air quality violations, yet we keep finding that those projects are extremely cost effective because we don't look at local air quality and local water quality and cost benefit analyses. So the importance of factoring in those things is important, and not having them looked at the very end of the process, but having those up front in decision making so we know exactly what we're going for. This is not in the petition, but from my personal standpoint on the advisory group, if there's a way to just have a threshold level of the amount of water pollution or the amount of local air pollution that local resources can emit, just like we have a local constraint for greenhouse gases or reliability, but there are ways to just factor in these things, but right now we're not. And the petition asks for the Energy Commission to open a proceeding to start determining how to factor in local impacts of energy resources, so we have a better holistic view of the impacts of those resources. And then moving on to the second page, the second point from the petition is switching from harms to benefits. And again, the example is from the energy efficiency world as well. And you can see that there's the most recent budget, and this is one that our group commented on a few months ago, where the equity budget for cost ineffective programs was $3 billion or so. But then for cost ineffective or cost effective ones, we're at the 600 level. So we're 18%. Like, so disadvantaged communities receive about 18% of clean energy funding out there. And this is just with the energy efficiency example. But again, like, these are the cost effectiveness tests that are locking in these funds. And again, the ESA funds in particular just go back to the utility companies if we don't use them, which is what's been happening. And then this is an example from the table you see here is a hypothetical, but not such a hypothetical, because this came from one of the co-petitioners, Grid Alternatives, that serves that does solar and other work in disadvantaged communities. They provided this example as a real world example where it's just, if you look at the dollar and cents, it's just cheaper to serve, you know, the more resourced, more affluent community school districts compared to a more rural district, for instance, just given the amount of time needed to get those projects going, which echoes the public comments on EPIC just now as well. So we need to correct the incentives for our clean energy developers to start focusing on disadvantaged communities as well. Right now, developers have to find workarounds, whether it's finding a very cost-effective, again, that could be a combustion project or a biofuel project that has local impacts, but they have to balance their cost-ineffective programs with cost-effective programs, which then that also just tips the scales against the benefits to disadvantaged communities, unfortunately. And then I think on the last page of the letter, I don't know how to, the letter just talks about how the current SB 100 process, and again, it's great that non-energy benefits has come this far and is in the SB 100 process itself, but still we should go a little bit further. And how do we use non-energy benefits and social costs to drive decision-making instead of just evaluating the trade-offs that we have to make? And, you know, the petitioners, myself included, are not willing to accept that we have to make those trade-offs. So, you know, is there a way to put these non-energy benefits and social costs up front so that we don't have to get to that trade-offs discussion at the end of the day? I've talked a lot and I'm really tired and not very coherent right now, sorry. So, but that's the letter, and happy to answer any questions that the fellow advisory group members may have.
Thank you, Roger. I'll just say that I sort of reiterate what you've already shared, but it seems like there are few issues that impact disadvantaged communities so broadly as this issue of non-energy benefits and non-energy costs, and it just has such an incredible impact on what programs folks have access to and what's going into communities. And it just seems central to sort of all of the different things that we talk about as this group. So I really appreciate this letter, and I don't myself have any questions.
Similarly, Roger, I just want to echo thanks to you and the other petitioners for bringing the petition forward, for putting all of the work into it that you have, both just in the petition and in the long history of this issue that you discussed briefly here as well. I know this has been a very long time coming, and this really strikes me as the way that we are going to make real all of the goals that we have on paper as a state to be inclusive in the clean energy transition, and to make sure that all boats do in fact rise, and to make sure that we are addressing existing inequities that have largely been perpetuated by use of fossil fuels. And I think much of California is on board with those goals, and we have not seen as much progress on exactly how we're going to get there. And I think this is one of the essential drivers to really making all of that real. So thank you for all of your work, and thank you for bringing it to the group as well.
Perfectly said, Stephanie. Any other comments or questions? And if not, we can move to a motion to approve. Okay. All right, let's see. So let's make a motion to approve item 5, non-energy benefits and social costs, and for this letter to be submitted from the DACAG. Do I have a motion to approve?
This is Stephanie. I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Stephanie. Do I have a second?
This is Andres. I'll second that.
Wonderful, thank you. And now we'll take a roll call vote. So please say aye if you're in favor, nay if you oppose, or indicate if you abstain. So Adrian,
Aye.
Andres,
Aye.
Curtis, see Curtis there, but we'll come back to him. Elena?
Aye.
Fred is not here. Julia, aye. Roger?
Aye.
Curtis, can I go back to you? I saw a hand.
You here?
Yes.
All right. Aye. Yes.
All right. And Roman is not here. Sahara is not here. And Stephanie?
Aye.
Wonderful. And item 5 passes. Thank you, everybody. All right, we're a little bit ahead of time, which is good. We're going to turn to item 6, and I'd like to welcome Eli Harlan from the CEC to present the draft Assembly Bill 525 Offshore Wind Strategic Plan. Welcome, Eli.
Great, thank you, Julia. Dorothy, you have the presentation up? Perfect. Perfect. All right, so good afternoon, DACAG members. My name is Eli Harlan. I work in the CEC's Siting, Transmission, and Environmental Protection Division, also known as STEP, which is responsible, this division is responsible for reviewing and preparing environmental reviews and other technical analyses of applications submitted to the CEC by developers seeking a license to develop certain types of sizes of power plants, both thermal and clean and renewable generating facilities. Our division, the STEP division, also works on longer range infrastructure planning, including developing land use information for use in statewide energy infrastructure planning, as well as offshore wind energy. My role in the STEP division is as a liaison to the DACAG. So I work with other staff members at CEC as well as the CPUC on the engagement that the agencies are doing with the DACAG. I also work on our team that is focused on offshore wind energy, so that's why I'm here to present today. Our offshore wind team presented an update to the DACAG in November of 2022, and since that presentation, much has happened, including what we'll be talking about today. So as the agenda shows, I plan to present to you the draft Assembly Bill 525 Strategic Plan that was published on January 19th and is currently in public review. I wanted to note that the draft was prepared with a lot of input from within the CEC as well as other state agencies. I myself contributed to parts of the plan, but I do want to acknowledge from the CEC, Melissa Jones, Jim Partridge, Lorelei Walker, and Rachel McDonald on our offshore wind team who really authored and project managed the draft report. So if we get to questions and there's some that I can't answer today, I'll definitely be connecting you with our lead team. Next slide, please. So why AB 525? In enacting AB 525, the legislature found and declared, among other things, that if developed and deployed at scale, offshore wind energy can provide economic and environmental benefits. Offshore wind energy can advance California's progress towards its statutory renewable energy and climate mandates. It offers a diversity in energy resources and technologies. and can lower overall costs of the resource portfolio. It can improve air quality, particularly in underserved communities. Investment in offshore wind energy development can offer career pathways and workforce training in clean energy development. And within AB 525, it states that offshore wind should be developed in a manner that protects coastal and marine ecosystems. Next slide, please. So the CEC, in collaboration with multiple state agencies, held meetings, workshops, tribal listening sessions, and intergovernmental roundtables. There were biweekly and monthly working group meetings, one-on-one conversations, all built around developing the strategic plan. Offshore wind is part of the work that's included in the work that the CEC does with the Public Utilities Commission and with the independent system operator on sort of the electricity and energy front. And for environmental offshore wind impacts and strategies to mitigate them, the CEC, we consulted and coordinated with most of the CNRA agency partners that we've been working with for years in the offshore wind space. But those are agencies like the State Lands Commission, the Ocean Protection Council, the Coastal Commission, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And then on the workforce development side, we consulted with the Labor and Workforce Development Agency as well as the Workforce Development Board in developing the plan. So next slide, please. Okay, so leading up to developing the draft plan that's out today, AB 525 also mandated the CEC to complete 3 interim reports ahead of that plan. So the 3 reports, first, there was a planning goals report where the CEC adopted planning goals for the purpose of the strategic plan of 2 to 5 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030 and 25 gigawatts by 2045. We also prepared a preliminary assessment of the economic benefits of offshore wind as they relate to seaport investments, and an offshore wind energy permitting roadmap was prepared, which discussed different permitting approaches that the state could take for addressing offshore wind. All of these interim reports are included, referenced throughout the draft strategic plan, along with a handful of other consultant reports that were prepared during the planning process. Next slide, please. So that's some background on how the report was prepared and why it was required. And so I'm going to present sort of an overview of the draft itself by summarizing some of the chapters and highlighting some areas. And so first of all, just to orient to the way that the strategic plan is organized, there are 3 total volumes to the strategic plan. Volume 1 is an overview of the strategic plan. Volume 2 is the full comprehensive strategic plan. And volume 3 are reference appendices. So the AB 525 statute itself required at minimum 5 chapters that were specific to identifying suitable sea space for wind, looking at economic benefits, workforce development and port infrastructure, analyzing the transmission needed for offshore wind, looking at permitting pathways or a permitting roadmap, and the identification of impacts and strategies. The report also builds on those minimum requirements and includes additional background about offshore wind technologies as well as the offshore wind industry. So next slide, please. So the report in offshore wind potential, economic and workforce benefits, the strategic plan addresses these, and the image here provides a visual of the types of beneficial impacts that the plan has sort of organized around that come from offshore wind development. Direct offshore wind benefits are those in the plan that come from direct activities such as construction of ports and offshore wind turbines, as well as the operation of those. Indirect benefits in the report are considered those that affect the local economy and industries by increasing demand, such as on-site demand for components or expansion of supply chain. And induced benefits in the report are those that increase expenditures from new household income that are generated from direct and indirect benefits. So the report sort of looks at those three buckets in light of the goals and prepares an analysis of those. And I think of interest in this chapter, there is the chapter builds from that analysis and then also highlights a lot of the input that the CEC heard around things like community benefit agreements, tribal community benefit agreements, in that context of really where that intersection of creating employment opportunities can occur in communities near land-based development activities. So those were comments that the CEC had heard, and it's sort of summarized in that chapter of the draft plan. So next slide, please. So impacts and strategies. So AB 525 also required us to identify and develop strategies to address the potential impacts of offshore wind, specifically on coastal resources, fisheries, Native American and indigenous peoples, and national defense. The CEC and the agencies that we worked with conducted outreach to tribal governments, fisheries groups, environmental groups, and others. The chapter evaluates potential impacts kind of across the board, tribal governments, local communities, but also it takes a look at potential impacts to marine life. So the image here is an example of the components of an offshore wind project, but then the types of impacts that the draft plan has identified, as well as some strategies for those. The chapter itself goes into other topical areas too, and I think of interest here, there's also an overview of impact strategies and recommendations to address those on Native American tribes and people. And there's also a section in this chapter that looks at those same things to address those impact on underserved communities. Next slide, please. So the statute also required the CEC to identify potential new sea space to meet the offshore wind planning goals for both 2030 and 2045. Several considerations had to be made in identifying potential sea space. And so the CEC looked at the wind resource characteristics, so wind speed and wind consistency, the ocean characteristics, so things like the depth of the slope of the ocean bottom, distance from shore. The areas that have been identified at this point are all at least 20 miles from shore. We also screened out for the existence of sanctuaries and protected areas, the incidents for marine resources in some areas were screened, and some existing ocean uses as well were used in identifying sea space. In total, the CEC identified 6 areas in federal waters. So these are waters beyond 3 miles beyond 3 and within 200 miles from the coastline. And those 6 areas are sufficient to accommodate the 2045 25 gigawatt goal. The report also finds that as much as half of that could be unsuitable for offshore wind due to a variety of different conflicts, marine use resources, other ocean uses. All of that's discussed further in the report. And then just to point out too, in the report, it discusses what the next steps would be for these sea space areas to be considered areas that could be suitable for development. And so the federal process for leasing areas that is led by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, or BOEM, they would be responsible for further evaluating those sea space areas before to initiate a planning process to identify any potential wind energy areas and go through leasing. So this is a step that the state took as required by AB 525 ahead of something the federal government might do. Next slide, please. So as you can imagine, significant investments in ports and waterfront infrastructure are needed for supporting different aspects of offshore wind development. So you have staging and integration, which is developing the projects. You have manufacturing and fabrication of large and small components. And then there's the operations and maintenance needs to support the offshore wind industry. So the State Lands Commission had prepared a port plan, a port analysis in support of AB 525. And that analysis found that to meet the 2045 planning goal, and to have a lot of the manufacturing and a lot of the economic development happen within California, as well as opposed to importing a lot of that, it would cost around $12 billion to upgrade that port infrastructure. So the draft really finds that a collaborative port development strategy would be really helpful to support different port upgrades, because not everything can be done at one port, and the identification of funding sources at the private, state, federal, and local levels are sort of all ways that we've seen ports develop on the East Coast, and likely on the West Coast is sort of a need there. And the report also finds that an efficient permitting process for port development is likely going to be needed, as reviews can take multiple years. And then last, this part of the report also includes a discussion of current activity in California as it relates to ports, especially on the North Coast and Southern California, where some port investments are starting to be made already. Next slide, please. In workforce development, for workforce development needs and standards, this was required by AB 525 as well. We conducted outreach to unions and labor organizations. The figure here shows that the supply chain and manufacturing sector account for most offshore wind jobs. It's likely these jobs are long-lasting, high-paying jobs. Supply chain and manufacturing jobs can be distributed across the state, if the offshore wind supply chain expands. And so the report finds that there's opportunity for that. And port facilities are upgraded to manufacture and provide material services and components. This is really the expansion, I guess, of that supply chain. And the most needed skills in the near term for offshore wind are in trades, technician, and construction sectors. And additionally, as I mentioned earlier, the report discusses the role of community benefit agreements and discusses that CBAs are things that communities have highlighted as very important in establishing meaningful workforce and economic benefits kind of across the offshore wind supply chain. Next slide, please. And so AB 525, it also required the CEC to assess transmission investments and upgrades to support the offshore wind planning goals. So there's a chapter 8 is covering transmission technology and different alternatives. And then chapter 9 focuses on transmission kind of planning and interconnection. So the two tackle different aspects of transmission. A very thorough write-up throughout both of those. But the chapter 8 really draws from a consultant report that was prepared by Guidehouse, which assesses the status and cost of offshore wind related transmission technologies. It finds that some of these technologies are really still emerging, and some are not yet commercially available. Things like dynamic cables, floating substations, DC breakers. And the plan also draws from a study that the Schatz Energy Research Center prepared of transmission alternatives for the north coast of California for a different range of offshore wind planning goals there. Chapter 9 discusses transmission planning and interconnection. The report really finds some things I think that are really similar with a lot of large-scale renewables development, is that proactive transmission planning is definitely really important to meet the planning goals. The chapter describes some options for a phased approach to developing offshore wind transmission. There's a recommendation for further planning and engagement and getting input from stakeholder groups and tribes, as well as underserved and local communities in that chapter. Next slide, please. And the last chapter that I'll talk about in the plan is the permitting chapter. So as I mentioned, the permitting roadmap was prepared ahead of the draft plan as one of those interim reports. It identified several approaches for coordinated or consolidated permitting of offshore wind projects. It also summarized various authorities and permitting processes related to offshore wind. The draft plan includes a suggested approach that's patterned after what's called the Renewable Energy Action Team, or the REAT structure, which is a process developed by state and federal agencies to improve permitting for large renewable energy projects, mostly in the California desert. The Renewable Energy Action Team, or REAT again, is to ensure a coordinated, comprehensive, and efficient permitting process for offshore wind. The plan lays out some recommendations for next steps in being able to set something up like a renewable energy action team for offshore wind. So next slide, please. And last, here are links to the AB 525 strategic plan webpage. On this webpage, there's links to the 3 volumes for the strategic plan itself. You can also find the interim reports as well as the contractor reports that the CEC relied upon. I will note that we're hosting a public workshop on the strategic plan. It'll be March 20th. And that will be a hybrid in-person and remote access workshop. The notice for that should be posted very soon. And the presentations there, similar to today, but much more in-depth through each of those chapters. Currently, public comments are due on the strategic plan by the end of March. I think that, we've received comments and we've heard a lot of folks who have been asking for additional time there. And I'm pretty sure that you'll see that there will be a little bit of additional time there, but we'll see exactly what that ends up looking like. And then within our notice of availability on the strategic plan itself, that's where you can find links for filing your public comments on there. You can also use the links here. And the CEC is expecting to bring, or the CEC staff is expecting to bring the final strategic plan to a business meeting later this spring. So that concludes my presentation for today, and I appreciate being invited here. I'm available to answer questions. And like I said, and/or take your questions and get back to you with an answer after I'm able to confer with some of our report leads. So I think I'll send it back over to you, Julia.
Well, Eli, thank you so much to you and everybody who contributed to this report and to this draft plan. I think at this point, before we move to DACAG feedback and discussion, we are going to welcome any public comment on item 6.
Thank you. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. For individuals that are joining us on WebEx, go ahead and use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. If you are calling in, press *3 to indicate that you would like to make a comment. Checking hands here. No hands. Anybody in the room would like to make comment? No comments. Back to you, Julia.
Thank you. And I'll just echo and uplift a couple things you mentioned. I'm really excited from a workforce perspective to hear you talk about the inclusion of both long-lasting and high-paying jobs. I'm really excited that there was so much consultation with labor and the trades. I think that conversation about community benefits agreements is really important, right? To make sure that those long-lasting, high-paying jobs are going towards to folks in the local community or the local region, and to folks who might not have had those opportunities in the past. I would be curious to hear about sort of what sort of training infrastructure there is in the area to support folks getting into those opportunities. And with that, I will turn it over to anybody else on the DACAG who would like to ask questions or make comments.
This is Roger. I could go first. Thank you, Eli, for the presentation. Super handy, and I'm glad to hear there's early consultation, and want to make sure there's also consultation with potential opposition to these, especially like, you know, when I think of port expansions, I wonder whether there could be like increased truck traffic or possibly during construction, and but you know, see if just want to make sure there's like, you know, the agencies are identifying like points of potential opposition where early consultation would benefit. And I have a second point, but just wanted to check on that one first.
Yeah, I think with the strategic plan, it's so, I wouldn't say like so high level, but it is at a kind of a statewide perspective, and where it does dig into more specific ports or impacts that you might see, you know, regardless of the port you could be in. I think it does the best job to identify that and kind of recommend what should be done or what could be done about those. And then at an individual level, when you know, if a port is doing an upgrade and goes through its own environmental review and permit process, you know, some of that'll have to happen there too. So hopefully we're, like I think you said, we're early, people are engaged, and it's not the first time you're hearing maybe about a project in your community. If we're doing a good job getting the word out, like you said, maybe trying to consult there early on. But yeah, it's kind of a balance of like state responsibility and really be a leader, vision, lay a foundation, and then individual, you know, ports are taking on projects, being able to, you know, sort of do it the way that they're going to do it, but being able to see what the state has laid out as a vision for things. I think that's kind of, I guess, how I'd respond necessarily to that, Roger. I mean, I could go into a little bit of detail, and I could go look, you know, after the meeting, we can see sort of how close we get to that in the report, if that helps. But
no, that's helpful. And then the environmental review point was my second point, in that I believe these projects are subject to CEQA streamlining. I'm not sure, but if there is like streamlining, you know, again, like just stress, like I think even if these projects are subject to CEQA streamlining, I think the agencies through 525 have the authority to just ensure, again, early consultation that you're doing, which is great. But, you know, even just looking at alternatives for the transmission, like grid enhancing technologies, for instance, especially as we're seeing our electricity rates just skyrocket, like whether alternatives to full on new transmission build outs, and just looking at where feasible, just enhancing existing transmission is cheaper and often more effective, whether that's one of the alternatives. But again, like stress like the early consultation, because in Commissioner Douglas's proceeding updating Public Utilities Commission General Order 131D, which is a review of transmission projects, what sort of review transmission projects should go under. The Public Advocate's Office has an analysis in that proceeding that shows that environmental review is actually not the cause of delay of transmission projects, even though there's this rhetoric that we hear at the legislature and in other spaces that we need to just get rid of CEQA to, you know, speed up transmission. But the Public Advocate's Office, though, have an analysis showing that's not the case, and early consultation is the way to actually speed up projects, so that they don't get litigated, for instance, down the road. And early consultation will catch that. So glad you're all doing it. And then another plug for grid enhancing technologies. Not sure if that's in the alternatives analysis.
Sorry, Roger, couldn't tell if this is a question or mostly kind of like comment on those, because I well, definitely following along, and I thought that those points, I understood the points you made, and so I think it's easy for us to follow up on those that are there.
Great. Yeah. Just early consultation and grid enhancing technologies. Yeah. So, thank you.
Okay.
Great. Adrian?
Yeah, thanks. I think Roger raised an important point about engaging with portside communities. I want to flag a couple issues that I think are really important in the report. Is I think all of these projects should be consistent with California's efforts to get zero emission transportation, particularly in our most notoriously polluted regions. And that includes not only the on-road parts, but also the kind of off-road. So for example, it's my understanding that some of these projects are going to literally purpose-built, commercial harbor craft like tugboats and other things like that. That'd be an incredibly wasted opportunity if we didn't get those to zero emissions. So I really think that nexus is going to be important as you engage with portside communities, in addition to community benefits. Because I think one of the things with these projects is if a community is going to get additional truck, manufacturing, and other pollution, really providing the community benefits to the community. And I think one of the things with our ports throughout the state, they've been hesitant to actually do some of these community benefits, like actually providing benefits to the neighbors, whether that's, weatherization, solar panels, other things for their house, because they are going to have some toll from these facilities in the form of increased pollution. So I think there's a lot of work, and I think these master level documents can be really important to kind of give the expectations for the ports, because ultimately I think a lot of them will be implementing it, but I really hope that notion of, addressing portside community concerns and community benefits is included in the report.
Thank you, Adrian. Also, exactly following what you're saying and what you're looking for, and as we go back through, and do our diligence on the draft and prepare finals, we'll be looking at all the input we get. So this is input along the way that I think has so far been really structured and easy to understand exactly sort of what you're recommending or suggesting or concerned with. So thank you.
I believe we have some comments from Kat Robinson, the chair's office.
Hi, all. I just wanted to say hello quickly. I've been listening to the discussion on the AB 525 plan. So Chair Hochschild has helped to lead this initiative at the Energy Commission with Eli and other staff. So I wanted to make sure that I was on from the chair's office today to hear feedback. This has been really constructive so far. Look forward to hearing more of the feedback. The permitting will be an important question, to Roger's point. It is not our understanding at this time that there is permit streamlining. I know those questions are swirling in the legislature, it seems. So I think Roger is still absolutely well-founded in making those points that and we're also not in the permitting phase for the state quite yet. We're getting started on that. So I think we will find more of these, what are the alternatives that are being considered, find some more of those answers on what alternatives are being considered as we get more into the project details. And it does sound like transmission might be one of the first ones, given that the transmission planning process is going to consider potential new needs in the North Coast this year. with the CPUC's preferred system plan. So looking forward to working with all of our sister agencies, some of which I see on this DACAC meeting on those items, and just appreciating that feedback. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to continuing to listen.
Thank you so much. Do we have any more? Oh, go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, just really quickly following up on the comments from the chair's office just now. Thank you. It's just to again plug like the grid enhancing technologies, which is like dynamic line ratings or different power flow controls or optimizing topology. It's, you know, these are new, relatively new things, but 4 members of Congress are urging FERC right now to adopt a shared savings incentive to, you know, make sure that we can get grid enhancing technologies off the ground more, because again, especially in California with our skyrocketing electricity rates, we don't want to see any needlessly built out transmissions that would impact that further. So just wanted to flag that like Congress is actively considering like potentially like putting more incentives behind just upgrading transmission instead of building new ones. So just wanted to flag that for potential alternatives consideration.
Thank you, Roger. I appreciate that.
Do we have any additional DACAC feedback or discussion on item 6, offshore wind? Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Eli.
Thank you.
And we will now move on to item 7. Pull up my notes here. So we're going to be talking just a little bit about DACAG membership. And I think that this came out of the last meeting where we wanted to talk a little bit about the member recruitment process and representation on DACAG. I have a few curiosities about this, and I think we can kind of take the conversation where we want to go. But some of the things we might discuss are how the DACAG existing members can be helpful in the outreach to and recruitment of new members, and what advice we might be able to provide on targeted recruitment of members. I'd love to hear just a reminder from staff on the timeline and process for recruitment and sort of the cycle. And then just a note that the vice chair position on our advisory council here is open. And I think we're going to discuss that at a future meeting since Roman isn't here, but that is a position we have to fill. So those are the general areas, topics that we can talk about in this section. Before we move into that, let's just take a pause for any public comment.
Thank you, Julia. DACAG now welcomes public comments on item number 7, membership. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, 3 minutes per person, 1 person per organization. For individuals that are joining us on WebEx, go ahead and use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. If you are calling in, press *3 to indicate that you would like to make a comment. Checking hands here. Anyone in the room would like to make a comment? Seeing no comments, back to you, Julia.
Okay. So maybe could we just hear just a quick overview of the general member recruitment timeline and process from the CEC or CPUC staff perspective?
This is Mona from the Energy Commission. We went out with outreach and a call for applications. The application deadline has passed, and so the joint agencies are in the process of interviewing applicants. and evaluating those applications. However, any input that DACAG has on areas, topics, regions, any priority areas or other experience that you feel would be great representation for DACAG, we'd love to hear that. We did get a good group of applicants. So yeah, if any opinions about where the representation should go would be really helpful for us at this time. And then for the future, every year there will be vacancies, and we don't know if folks will seek reappointment. So if you have any feedback on how we can do recruitment in the future, we'd love to hear that as well.
Thanks, Mona. Are you able to share any of the existing sort of topic areas or regions or experience that's represented in the current group of applicants being considered?
I don't want to share any application information at this time, but I will say, existing membership, we have folks from LA and the Bay Area. We have a member from Coachella Valley. And you guys have a lot of different experience: workforce, transportation, reliability, equity data, and that sort of thing. So I think, thinking about those, a lot of different of those parameters would be great to hear.
Were there any gaps that you identified in the current membership when you were going out to the current round of applications?
So I would say we don't have anyone, with Jana's departure, we don't have anyone from way north. Actually, north of Bay Area, I think we don't have folks from that area. And I would also say Central Valley, San Joaquin Valley are areas that we don't have, direct representation from. Although we know, advocacy groups are all over the state and that sort of thing. But yeah, specifically those regions, we don't have representation as far as I know, but anyone can speak up and let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. I do some, or my organization does some work in San Joaquin County, but that's about it. I see Curtis has a hand raised. Go ahead, Curtis.
Julia, Mona, is there any idea how many applications we actually got? Or do you might not know the exact number, but a roundabout?
I want to say 13. I don't have it in front of me. And we have 3 vacancies. So we got a good group.
That is good. And when are those decisions being made? Could you remind me?
So we're in the process right now. The agencies will, interview a select number of applicants and evaluate, and then work with our lead commissioners from each agency to move forward recommendations for appointment at a business meeting of the CEC and CPUC. So it might be April or May before the members would join as their first meeting, but the process has a few steps, so I don't want to make any promises.
Of course. I have another question, but want to make sure everyone gets a chance.
This is Roger. There's a bill moving through the legislature right now, Assembly Bill 1881, that looks at the California Coastal Commission, and it seeks to allow someone from the building trades to take one of the environmental justice seats on the Coastal Commission. I want to make sure nothing like that is happening with this group and the pool of applicants.
Duly noted, Roger. Thank you.
And also going back to Julia's question about like how, how our group could help new members. I have 2 points to make. The first is, I think is it possible to have some overlap, so the new members could, just kind of like see how we are instead of just tossing like basically half of the group on days like today where we have issues with quorum to newer folks who may not be as familiar. And on that note as well, I believe the term limits that we have are prescribed in our charter. Is there opportunity for our group to vote in some way? I guess this is a question for legal, to amend our charter to extend term limits in the event that we don't find enough applicants, or if there are folks who want to stay on. And like there's just to be frank, the subject matter stuff that we deal with is difficult, and we deal with a lot of technical issues, and there are also the politics behind everything is difficult, and there's a steep learning curve. And I believe our term, we're 3 term limits, and it's when you're just getting up to speed and then you get new folks in who then have that learning curve, I think the group may be at some sort of a disadvantage. But did want to check on those 2 points though. And we don't have to have an answer now. If folks need time to think about it and get back to us at the next meeting, well, we can talk about it. And and just full disclosure, even if we can amend the charter, and if we do amend the charter to extend term limits or add 1 additional term or whatnot, subject to discussion at probably our next meeting, I personally will not be looking for that, but this is just for other members who may be interested in doing so.
Thanks, Roger. That's a great question. Does anyone have an answer on that right now, or is that something we should return to at the next meeting?
This is Mona. I don't know if we've got folks that can unmute, but I'll just say, the charter is amendable, and it is due for a refresh. We've been looking at a few different items, so I will definitely take that term limit item back to the interagency group. So thank you for that.
I've maybe a related question, which is, have current DACAG members ever participated in the selection of new member? Could they, and is that of interest to members and to the agencies?
I am not aware of DACAG members participating in the evaluation of new members, but I invite CPUC support staff that's been working with DACAG longer than myself as an individual, or Dorothy, to chime in if they have a different answer.
That's correct. It's a decision that the commissions make, and as you know, if there was something that you didn't like, then we always publish our decision to make the new appointments before our voting meetings. So if there was, a member that you didn't like because of their affiliation with trades or something like that, that you thought was not appropriate, then that would be the time for you to weigh in on that decision by our commissions. I would just note that the exception to all of this is the tribal appointment, which comes from the governor's tribal advisor, and could happen tomorrow, whenever they want to make that appointment.
And I concur with Judith's note as well.
That applies to, I think like the evaluation is one thing, and then the selection. I'm not necessarily saying that the DACAG member should take on the decision making of that, but if there's any way, if it would be of interest and possible for us to support and help with some of the evaluation based on our experience and our networks, and also with referring candidates and things like that.
And I think others can add, just to add on here, you know, you know, in the past, we have definitely looked to DACAG for recommendations on folks we should reach out to, definitely. And just to Mona's note as well, previously, regarding just the charter, you know, since the confirmation of members, I believe that's in the charter, that process. So so that can be probably a discussion of how we can amend that if there's interest within DACAG to be part of that process.
Go ahead, Adrian.
On the charter amendments, are we allowed to have somebody from our committee engage with commission staff on a review and what might and get, I mean, I guess we'd be limited to like 2 or 3 folks to kind of engage, or I guess the people could do it individually, but I'm wondering if there is some kind of process where folks might provide the staff some input.
Hi, this is Renee from CEC Legal, and absolutely, Adrian, that you know, we certainly take note of member sentiment about the ways in which the charter might be improved. Specific language we welcome from any individual members, like on the idea of the term limits. If you have specific recommendations, things that have worked well in other community advisory groups, we would welcome that. And you know, as you note, just short of the sort of the subcommittee issue, we would welcome any input from members on the DACAG. Just in terms of process, in the past, when we amended the charter, we did first bring, and it was a collaborative effort involving at least some members of the DACAG. We brought it to a meeting of the DACAG to vote on, and then ultimately it's adopted by both agencies. So that's sort of the formal part of the process, but that, yeah, but early on, anything that you've identified in terms of filling vacancies, anything that would be helpful, we would welcome your input.
Would it make sense? Oh, go ahead, Roger.
Thanks, and thank you for that, Renee. And you know, so could a subset of us look at the potential pool of applicants and then decide whether to amend the charter? Because I think going with Judith's suggestion to like wait to expel these the unwanted members is a little cumbersome down the road.
I guess we were really focused on trying to allow the members to provide us with a broad pool and to identify potential members. But I think now we're in a process which is being led by the commission staff and the commissioners. So I'm not sure at this point whether it's kind of ripe for this. I think, you know, in the next cycle, and we know that positions do come open because of resignation, you know, off cycle. I'd really encourage you to maybe make yourselves available to share your experience as members. And if you wanted to even write letters of recommendation for certain people that you know are going to apply, you know, that seems like that would be fine and you know, help their application. But I think at this point we're in a different phase of our decision. So I'm not really sure about you know, because whether people who applied signed up to kind of a more public scrutiny, and at this point.
would there be value in adding our current charter to next month's agenda to refresh our memories on what is in it and think about what potential changes we might want to make some recommendations? See some general head nodding. I think the caveat there that it would make sense for all of us as members to read that ahead of time so that we can have a productive discussion. Okay, Commissioner Monahan.
Yeah, Julie, I was going to suggest that as well, just because it has been something that we've talked about internally, and for me as a new co-lead on the DACAG, I'm like, well, what is the DACAG thing? So actually, it would be really helpful to have input into I mean, some of those things, extending terms, we've talked about it internally and just kind of had musing, but without having your input, it seems kind of, we can't move forward or we can't identify what's a priority to work on. And the chief counsel's office have to be involved from both agencies so it's like a stepwise, like, what do we really want? What do you want? What do we push for? What's legal? And, so it's a stepwise, but just hearing what you want, I think is a great start. And I think, what you're hearing about the process is already moving with the interviews. And so slowing it down, will just, I think, hamper the ability to move forward swiftly on this. But in the future, we could think about that, right? In the future, if the DACAG is like, oh, we really want to be involved in screening the applicants, then we could think about it versus this kind of reactive mode.
Thank you. That makes sense.
And so what would happen if we were to next month amend the charter to extend term limits? And then, there's this process moving with new folks. But then some of us, again, not myself, would be like, no, I don't want to leave yet. Is it just going to be like, well, tough because the process is starting and you didn't amend your charter in time?
This is Mona from the CEC again. So the charter is adopted by the CEC and CPUC, but I think what we've talked about today is the agencies getting input and recommendations from DACAG on charter changes, and then we'll go back and see what the authority is and how we can implement any changes, and then it would go forward for a vote at a CEC meeting and a CPUC meeting separately. So it's adopted by the agencies, but not DACAG, but we still want the input and have it be a collaborative process.
Regarding Roger's earlier question, without amending the charter, can we have at least one meeting where there is an overlap of exiting members and new members, just for the sake of a smoother transition?
So under the charter, we can't have more than 11 members.
Okay.
But I will say that every applicant we've talked to, we've shown them how to find recordings of past meetings, and we've actually encouraged them to attend today's meeting. And we do a briefing for new members. And what we can do is make sure they have any materials for their first meeting ahead of time. There may not be a voting item at their first meeting, we'll see, but we'll try to provide as much support for them as possible before their first meeting.
Do you ever include DACAG members in that briefing, and would that be valuable to provide the perspective of what it's like to be a member and to start building connection and community among members?
That's a really great idea, and I'm going to lean on CPUC and Dorothy to let me know, because I haven't been through this process before.
Hi, this is Dorothy. So when onboarding, it's typically been a one-on-one process, and CPUC can add for any period I have not been present, but it's typically been a one-on-one process, and building in that teamwork or that environment within the DACAG has been us supporting, and then we've seen that more in the party area, subject matter area sphere, rather than, and then in the meetings themselves, just to be able to maintain how we're able to gather as many members as possible, as many members as possible in a given time. But that's typically how it's gone, but that is a great idea of how, and we can definitely take feedback on how to build upon that and expand on that. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And maybe it's something we can talk about in the agenda setting meeting as well, just because it could be a function of the chair, the vice chair, the secretary to participate in some of that onboarding. Adrian?
Yeah, this sounds great. I'm glad there's going to be the discussion of the charter at the next meeting. One thing is, so I'm also like Roger in the kind of terming out group, and I guess there is this 3-month kind of, you can continue until there's a new appointment. And I'm agnostic. I think most of us are willing to serve because I think there is some benefit to making sure you have more members, especially if there are voting items. One thing is, it would be helpful just to understand timing, given that it's not, the DACAG itself can't dictate the timing. It's the approval by the CEC and PUC. So just encourage staffs to communicate with I think it's 3 of us who are cycling off, just so we can kind of plan and know, happy to come, but, also excited for some new members. That's exciting.
Thanks, Adrian. Dorothy, did you want to add something?
Yes, just to my previous, just to add on to my previous comment, I think outside of the founding meeting, the first meeting, there was no, everything else for new members was one-on-one, since all members were together at that time, and in person during those times. Yeah. So outside of that, it was, everything happened one-on-one with onboardings.
And I think it was mentioned earlier that we're thinking that this will happen for either the April or May meeting. We're hoping to have the new appointments.
Okay, anything else? Oh, go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, if it is April, yeah, because if it is April, this will be, I think Roger Andres is in my last meeting. So yeah, just noting that it would be nice to be able to, say something, but if not, we can just, do 3-minute comment at the next DACAG meeting. So
I'm sure in planning the next meeting, they can provide agenda time for as long as you'd like.
So I will say the April, our goal is to have the appointments ready for CEC and CPUC approval at the next meeting, which would be April, the month of April. And so the new members' first meeting would be May, if we could make that timeline. Yeah, so, and I really appreciate the offer to stay on so that we don't have missing seats while we're completing the process of onboarding. Thank you.
And I think it would be nice or some member to say thank you. And yeah, I just want to echo that. Okay, anything else on this item? Good discussion. We have some plans for our next meeting agenda to review the charter, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to thank our exiting members and welcome new ones in the next couple months. All right, we are now on to item 8, and these are our priority areas. So this is an opportunity for DACAG members to provide updates and announcements regarding the DACAG priority areas and associated activities. And I think we're going to bring up the slide for our 2024 topics. And before we go into member updates and discussion, I'd like to invite any public comment on item 8.
Thank you, Julia. DACAG now welcomes public comments on item number 8, priority areas. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. For individuals that are joining us on WebEx, go ahead and use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. If you are calling in, press *3 to indicate that you would like to make a comment. Hands here, no hands. Anyone in the room who would like to make comment? Seeing no comments, back to you, Julia.
Thank you, Ling. Okay, does anyone have any updates on any of our priority areas for 2024? Go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, since last meeting, we didn't have any meetings on transportation, but just wanted to flag that there was some pretty exciting events down in the harbor area of LA around transportation electrification. So Commissioner Monahan was down at one of a very large truck charging and electric truck project. So it's pretty exciting to see the, stuff where, providing feedback on actually kind of being operationalized in zero emission trucks on the ground in disadvantaged communities.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Roger?
Yeah, I wonder if the person from I can't remember your name. Sorry, it's been a long week. But who commented on Epic would like to raise that issue again, and I think I followed what was going on, but I think we can have a broader discussion right now if the person is still here.
Yes, Mr. Lin, I again just want to reemphasize the point.
Yes.
Just want to reemphasize the point that we previously attempted to apply to EPIC grants, but were readily disqualified by just the need to have $2 million+ on hand in cash, and there's just literally no consideration of federal investment funds that can pay up to 70% of the project. And I just want to reemphasize that point, that's in my opinion a significant barrier to investment. More importantly, for the cities that we're focused in the Central Valley. I don't know if you have any other questions. Be happy to entertain them.
It was a
Yeah.
CDC long duration story. I mean, you had a specific.
Yes, it was a very specific grant that we're looking at. In fact, let me see if I can reference it really quick here. This was the Optimizing Long Duration Energy Storage to Improve Resilience and Reliability in Disadvantaged and Low-Income Communities and Native American Tribes. So that's a very specific grant, but I also want to reiterate that it's basically every EPIC grant has that requirement. And it's a challenge, to say the least.
So I'm not quite familiar. Does EPIC require matching?
Yes. So there are two types of ways of satisfying these matching funds. One's a cash, and another one is an in-kind. And more important, they're scored slightly more aggressively, if you will, if you have cash above and beyond the minimum. And so the requirement is basically, I believe it's 25% in cash. And if you have more than 25%, you get additional points. It basically reflects the strength of your application. And so what it's basically saying is that if you're cash rich, you get a greater chance of receiving these funds. If you're cash poor, good luck. And that's just the bottom line that we're observing here. And more specifically, like I said, with disadvantaged communities. Now, our role as a developer is to find the financing. And what we're doing is that we're prioritizing funds where we can provide direct benefits to the community. Let me give an example. So ITC is about 30%, right? You can add an additional, I don't know if it's 10 or 20% if it's a disadvantaged community. If it's an energy community. All of these adders can add up to 70%. But the reality is the administrators, or just rather the regulations behind these programs, do not account for that. And that's just, we're struggling to get these projects funded, and that's where our focus is at right now. Yes, we can go into more expensive capital, but the reality is that we're trying to bring benefits to the community. And so we're holding strong on those values.
And maybe this is a question for staff, but is that in statute, or is it that in implementation of like how the CPUC and CEC like interpret the statutes to implement EPIC?
So he's referring to CEC process. So I'm not sure if there's someone from the CEC who can speak to it, but as far as I know, it's probably more in the implementation, not statutory. So I would think that would be, but okay.
Let me add a little comment to that, and I did reference it in the letter. I think the direction for CEC is very clear. I think it's implementation, and that's where the challenge is at. And it's a huge red flag on my end, obviously.
And do we know if this is which EPIC cycle? This is EPIC 4 then?
I'm not sure. This was last year, 2023.
Yeah. So that would be epic. I mean, the CEC should speak to this because to make sure. But we're in EPIC 5. We're about to start EPIC 5. We're in EPIC 4 right now. So if it was last year, then it, probably was an EPIC 4.
And the idea is to affect change as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. And there is also the in-kind, right? So if people, have an up and going concern, then they're contributing in-kind, they're.
But the difference is that it's scored differently. So if you have cash, that's scored differently. And if you have above and beyond the 25%, you get even more bonus points on your application. And so that's.
So I think that's kind of an indicator of the viability, maybe, of the,
And
I mean, I'm just spitballing,
And the additional aspect to this is that we really need to account for the viability of these projects by accounting for federal investment, right? Not just cash, because just as good as cash, as far as I'm concerned, we can actually pay for projects with that.
Yeah, and it's very impactful right now.
Hi, this is Dorothy Marami with the CEC. I do have staff that might be able to speak on it on a very high level, and then we could connect with staff later and then have a deeper discussion and maybe bring this back. But I believe Rachel Salazar is on the line.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Mr. Garcia, for raising this. I actually had noted your comment at the top of the call and was planning to follow up with you after this meeting. Just at a high level, I can share that, our match requirements do tend to fluctuate from solicitation to solicitation. The table, I'm glad you raised the table because that does describe the current kind of scoring structure that's fairly standardized for general projects, and that will, obviously award more heavily with a higher cash in hand match contribution. I am going to follow up with the folks for that particular solicitation, as that was aimed at the tribes. Typically, we try to, make some changes for these types of solicitations. So I'm happy to continue to talk to you and, work through this offline, but just wanted to let you know that, point well taken, and we'll be working on that.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I think when the EPIC issues arose in our prior meetings, one of the things that I believe this group raised was like, can't we have more projects that come from the communities? Versus like, my favorite is the energy efficiency at dairies, where I'm like, that's an EPIC project? There's innovation there, but that's clearly like a big developer coming in and doing a project in a disadvantaged community at an industrial source in a disadvantaged community, and that counts as a benefit. So anyway, just wanted to flag that, and we do need more projects coming from, the actual communities, and this may be a significant barrier. So glad that staff is on top of it.
Thanks, everyone. Dorothy, did you have something else you wanted to share?
Oh, apologies. No, I'll lower the hand. Thank you.
No worries. Any other priority items or priority area items? Okay, hearing none. That brings us to item 9, which is go ahead, Adrian. Sorry, I missed you.
And one thing just want to flag is, and I'm not sure when folks will be added to priority areas, but transportation will get kind of lonely for Ramon, like later this year. So, I think some folks, because Andres and I are cycling out, some folks may want to join that because that is a pretty active and important subject matter area.
It's a great flag. Do we have candidates in the pipeline who are in the transportation space? Are we allowed to know?
We're doing interviews, so I think so, but I don't want to. I don't have it off the top of my head, but we are asking. We are talking to them about the priority areas and asking them the areas that they have interest in. So it's
Okay.
part of the
Sounds
evaluation process.
Sounds like that's one we need to make sure we address.
And Stephanie's been in the transportation work over the years too. So. Or weren't you? You were in our group at one point, right? Or making that up?
You might be making that up. I definitely would not consider it an area of expertise. Happy to opine from an uninformed perspective.
Awesome. All right, thank you, everyone. So item 9 is Low Income Oversight Board, and given that Roman is our liaison with the LIOB and he is not here, I think we can skip this item, except Dorothy has her hand up. Yes?
I just wanted to flag again, it's in the newsletter, but there's going to be a LIOB meeting next week.
Next week. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, item 10 is agency updates and announcements. So CEC and CPUC staff have the opportunity to provide updates and announcements. Let us start with the CEC.
Thank you, Julia. I'll pass the mic to Rachel first to make announcements. Rachel Salazar. And just to note, she is a DACAG liaison with our agency. We have quite a number who do support in getting information to DACAG. So thank you, Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to start with an item that we actually did not have on the newsletter. We weren't able to provide the detail necessary, but wanted to make you aware. Staff are going to be holding a scoping workshop later this month, gathering input for refining topics on a solicitation seeking location-specific aspects of gas decommissioning. So we knew this was an area that DACAG had expressed interest in previously, so we did want to make you aware of it. We anticipate the notice will be posted next week, and we will also post it to the DACAG docket. So look out for that one. And then we included two funding opportunities in the newsletter. First is GFO 23309 for virtual power plants and approaches for demand flexibility. So this one is offering up to 21 million and seeking demonstrations of community-based virtual power plants with innovative energy management systems in commercial buildings and increasing demand flexibility. There will be preference points available for projects located and demonstrating benefits in disadvantaged or low-income communities and on tribal lands. But to qualify, proposals must include a community engagement plan, a plan to reduce barriers and improve access for jobs for local and underrepresented workers, as well as a description on how the project can reduce the energy cost burden for low-income customers. So there will be a pre-application on March 28th, and the deadline to apply is July 1st. The second one is very timely. GFO 23310. This one is for non-energy impacts and process evaluation of integrated energy retrofit packages for California's residential buildings. We're seeking to fund one project up to $3 million and looking at the impacts of consolidated electrified retrofit packages for air quality and other impacts. This will help guide cost-effective building electrification, process evaluation, mapping out of non-energy benefits for home electrification, and how these benefits could be considered in strategies and decisions to retrofit or replace gas-fueled appliances. The projects must have a large sample size of homes, including a majority in disadvantaged or low-income communities, and a subset of those required to be located near one of the once-through cooling power plants whose operations were extended. So we will be holding a pre-application workshop on March 29th, and the deadline to apply for that one is May 31st. And that is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. And then just one more, I just want to say thank you to all the members for continued participation in our asks for your expertise in the SME meetings for the priority areas. And, you know, more will be coming, or more will continue to come, but we'll try to make sure to let you know in advance so you can be able to check your timelines and calendars. And we're very respectful of that. And again, super appreciative of that. Thank you. And that's it for us.
Can I add one more, Dorothy?
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
So I wanted to mention that just yesterday we held a workshop on 2 grant programs that we're tailoring specifically to address equity issues in transportation. And so it's early days in this, but just to keep it on your radar screen, one is for technical assistance to help really with like grant writing. And the other is a focus on deploying chargers in kind of under-resourced urban areas, which can also be rural urban areas, but to support community-based efforts, in particular in charger deployment. And what we're finding is that, I think as we heard from one of the folks commenting about getting EPIC money, it can be hard for community members to get access to our funding and then to be able to like move a project along, especially in, I would say, rural urban areas where the infrastructure can be aging and challenging, and it can be more expensive. And so we're trying to balance the need kind of for rapid deployment of chargers with also the need to ensure communities aren't left behind and to support communities that are really trying to invest in building out infrastructure. And so I think you guys have heard we have an active solicitation right now for tribal communities to access grants for EV charging. First time we've ever done something like that. So there's just a series of these grant programs that we're really tailoring specifically to equity. And I would suggest maybe for the DACAG to consider in a future meeting for us to present on them and for you to have some greater insight into these equity-focused programs and even in the crafting of them.
Thank you so much. Okay, does anyone from the CPUC have updates or announcements?
Yes, hi, Cheryl Cox for the CPUC. I have a couple of announcements. The first on EPIC, which follows up on remarks that Commissioner Douglas made earlier, and also that my team gave a presentation on last month. March 19th will be the kickoff workshop for EPIC to kind of level set and give a definition of strategic objectives to develop measurable targets for EPIC. That will be followed by an April 2nd level setting workshop for developing an impact analysis framework, also to get us those measurable metrics. Equity is going to be embedded in all the follow-up technical working groups that we do. The first two that I mentioned on April 2nd and March 19th, those will be virtual. The other ones will have an in-person component because they're going to be like a roll up your sleeves, get people to talk about the gaps and how to address those gaps. We'd love to have DACAC member participation in that. We'll probably reach out to you, but please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly if you're interested. They follow the 5 goals that we had mentioned previously. Yeah, and those will be probably April to June, we're imagining, covering the technical working groups. The second announcement has to do with DACAG expense reports. Ling had mentioned last time that we're able to go back to 2020 only up through the end of this fiscal year. To anything that you have not sent us for your per diem or expense reports, please get those in. We're asking for them by the end of this month, but April may be okay. It's just they start to close out the paperwork part as we get close to the end of the fiscal year. It's sort of different from this year's per diem than anything going back to 2020. If you're not sure on your record keeping of what you attended, we can help with that. So don't hesitate to reach out with that, out to us. Don't let that be a barrier to pursuing anything that you didn't provide to us before. But anything beyond going back to 2020 will close out, and you won't be able to get reimbursement for by the end of this year. So please let us assist you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anyone else from the PUC? Yeah, Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, Cheryl's comment reminded me that now that we're on our way out, we can say whatever. But we need to get this group funded. Like, the per diems are nice, don't get me wrong. But I do want to contrast, our group with the procurement review group that I've raised a while back. But the procurement review group is, folks and stakeholders at the PUC who just verify that the procurement is, that what we procure actually matches up with like the integrated resource plan or whatever other procurement policies we have or regulations. And, so I see our role as fairly similar to that group, but focused more on equity, obviously, making sure the right resources are procured, but in EJ communities. And that group gets intervener compensation rates. So $400 to $500 an hour. And, leaving this group next month, I guess, it's a lot of work, and one reason that I said that even if we could amend the charter, I wouldn't stay on it anymore is because I don't have it in me to like the non-energy benefits work. And again, want to express great gratitude to Energy Commission staff on that one for just taking leadership, because that's just from this group was 6 years of concerted effort to get, something that we've been wanting for a long time. And it's a lot of work and it's exhausting, and, and so anyway, just wanted to plug, like, perhaps at a future meeting, maybe next month's meeting is a good one because we're sort of in that in between, like with Adrian, Andreas, and myself leaving, and then new folks coming in. It'll be more comfortable for at least myself to advocate for future members to get paid. But I do think that is something that this group should look at if we really want to keep this group effective. You know, I've been fortunate in that like a lot of the issues overlap with like my day job. I know that's not always the case though for folks. And I think that's what the overlap is one reason I've been able to be more active. But if we had funding to really make it like someone's like, this isn't just like a extracurricular activity, I think that's important and hope we can discuss that and the opportunities for that at next month's meeting.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, any other comments on item 10? Okay, so moving to item 11, this is agenda setting and attendance. So first we'll take any recommendations for any future meetings. I've got member compensation noted as an agenda topic. I have DACAG charter review noted as a future topic. Anything else that folks want to see on the April agenda or in future agendas? Okay. And then our next meeting is April 19th, 2024. Would love to hear now if there's anyone who knows that they cannot make it to that meeting. And a reminder that we need 6 people for quorum. Anyone who knows they won't be able to participate? Okay, well, if that changes, of course, let staff know. I know they send out an RSVP survey, and that's always really helpful for planning. So thank you in advance for that. And that takes us to item 12, which is general public comment. And Ling, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Julia. DACAG now welcomes general public comment. The comments are limited to 3 minutes and 1 speaker per organization. For individuals that are joining us on WebEx, go ahead and use the raise hand feature that looks like an open palm. If you're calling in, press *3 to indicate that you would like to make a comment. Checking hands here. And anyone in? Yes, we have 1 comment from the room who join us in person would like to make comment.
I'm not sure if you're tired of hearing from me today. Armin Garcia. I just want to, this is my first time attending one of these meetings, and I want to re-emphasize a point that Mr. Lin said about the compensation for these individuals. We tend to work with city councils from very small cities, and these individuals get paid a very small stipend on a per monthly basis. And it's really hard for me to ask them to spend significant amounts of time and effort when they're poorly compensated, quite frankly. And I'm speaking about city council members, mayors in very small cities. And so I see this issue across the board. And it's interesting to observe that it's happening here, even with a relatively new organization. And so I think it's critical for us to really take a step back and ask how our public volunteers basically are being compensated. I think it's a lot of work, a lot of effort. When we interact with these individuals, we do ask for a lot of their time. They have to take time away from their full-time job. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate you engaging in today's meeting and for the public comments. That's why we're here. So thank you for that. Is that everybody, Ling?
Seeing no more comments, that concludes general public comment. Back to you, Julia.
Okay, well, I want to thank Stephanie for being our secretary and note taker and minutes taker today, and for everybody's participation. Thank you to staff. And with that, we will adjourn item 13. We will adjourn at 3:17 p.m., a little bit early. Hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
everyone.